Okay, so we have some trout from Lake Taupo, and the information or the data that we have, the measurements, are actually from samples that were fished out of Lake Taupo 1 year and put back. And these things, whether they're male or female, these are all boys, here's a girl there, a female over here, was recorded, their weight and the length of them. And the other day we looked at how heavy they were when we pulled out a sample of about 18 trout. And we're going to do a few more samples, but I just want to talk about some of the main ideas and give you some techniques for you to practice with. So here were the fish that went into the container or from the lake, and we sampled from them because we can't measure usually every single fish. So in statistics, we get a sample that represents the population to try and understand, in this case because we were looking at weights, how heavy the trout are. And we've got a lot of different results. Now these ones here are the results from the lake, and it's all the fish that are in the lake, in our little plastic lake, or all the fish that were captured in reality. Right? So the column here is the length of each fish. So the first fish is 660 long. It weighs 3.9 kilos. It's a boy. Spawned. How caught. DT. They all look like they're DT, and I'll have to look up what that means because I can't remember. Condition, the fish ID, and the species of trout that it was. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to grab a random sample of 25 fish at a time, and instead of just me picking any old fish, I'm going to put an equation in here. So I'm going to type in equals random number, and I'm going to close up the brackets. And so what that equation has done is it's given me a random number between 0 and 1. And if I copy that equation, so what do? See that white cross? I put it in the corner there until it turns into a black cross. And I drag and drop. And I drag and drop. And see how they change? And that's okay. Because every time you make a little movement or you do something, that random number keeps re-randomizing itself. It keeps changing. So I'm going to go all the way down the bottom. I'm copying that random formula, so they've all got a slightly different random number. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to call that rand. I'm going to highlight the headings in bold. And now I'm going to select all the fish. I think there's about 1,000 of them, or just over. Here we go. 1,100 minus the title, so 1,099. And up here I'm going to go data, sort. Now sort means that you can change the order of these fish from, say, heaviest to lightest. I can sort on the weight key. So if I sort, see, it's recognizing that it's got a header. If I unclick that, it's going to include sorting that header. So we don't want that. We're going to sort it on, well, we could sort it on the weight key, but that's not very random. So what we're going to do is we're going to sort on the random key, which is going to put, so we're going to go OK, and let's try that again. Sort, OK. What it's done is as soon as it's sorted, it's changed the random number. It's kind of blinked away. But what it allows me to do is to choose the first 25 fish. So I'm going to grab the weights of the first 25 fish, Control copy, and I'm going to put them down over here, Control V. Okay, now they're all over the place. So I'm also going to sort them. There is no header there. And on column K, I'm going to go smallest to largest. I'm happy with that. Done. Okay. Now I'm going to grab my sample again. And I'm not sure if I've made it very clear what I'm actually doing, but what I'm doing by this little process is I'm grabbing the first 25 fish based on the lowest random numbers. And unfortunately you can't really see it because as soon as it randomizes itself and moves, those random numbers change. But it's changing the order every time. So it's like me picking 25 fish out of the lake or out of the hat. So I'm doing it, I have got headings on that one. I'm doing it on rand, go, and it's reordered the fish, and because I chose the whole block, it keeps the rows together, but it does it from lowest to highest there. So I'm going to grab the weights again of the first 25 fish, because they're randomly selected, so that's my second sample. Okay, and then I'm going to sort them. No, I'm not going to expand it, I'm just going to continue with that selection, because that's the ones I want to reorder from lowest to highest. So what I'm doing here is, instead of laying them all out on the table, I'm using the computer to do it really quickly. Okay, so there's sample 1 here, I'm going to type it in, sample 2, and sample 3. How many should we do? We'll do a few. Sample 4 and sample 5. I'm going to pause it and grab these samples, and then I'll come back to you. So I've just grabbed 5 samples in the same way, a total of 5 samples, 25 in each, and they're all random. It's like I've picked them all out. So what I'm going to do now is, let's just work with sample 1. I'm going to highlight the highest and lowest value. The lowest called the minimum and the highest called the maximum. I'm going to jump in the middle. So I've got a count there of 25. 12 each side. I think that one there is the middle. So I'm just going to mark that off. Yep, that counts 12. So that one there is what we call the median. So I'm just going to type that in, median. In there, bold it. I'm just going to insert column in between there, so it just gives us a wee bit more space. This one here was called the minimum, and this one here was called the maximum. Okay, now that one there, remember, is called the 50th percentile, and that's the 0th percentile, I guess, and that's the 100th percentile. Quarter way, I think it's about there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 above. It's probably going to be there, is the lower quartile, and so that's the point, or the fish, the width of the fish, that's halfway between the lowest and the middle fish, so it's the quarter value. So he's like a little marker, that fish there. Similarly, I think that one there's our upper quartile. As long as I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 there, 5 there, that looks like it's about right. So that's the upper quartile. Now we don't care how big those values are or small. Remember, they're random. But from this sample, this fish is in the middle. He's like our middle child. And this is our quarter way fish. And this is our 3/4 way fish here. Alright, or width, weight of fish. And because I've got them laid out in rows and I've ordered them, these ones here for these samples, they're all the lower quartiles, all the lower values, the minimums, all the lower quartiles, all the medians, or 50th percentiles, all the upper quartiles, and lastly all the highest values. So those are the values there. Now I've got this little box plot maker. Normally I would dot plot these, so I'll do the dot plots. Now I'm only allowed to do 3 at a time, so I'm just going to pick my first 3. We're just going to call the first one sample 1, and the minimum value is 1.076 kilos. Whoops, that's gone in the wrong place. There. Quarter 1, 1.292. And we'll just type the median in, 1.698. Third quartile, 2.022. I'm going to pause that while I put them in because I think it's a bit boring for you to watch that. Okay, I'm back. I've just filled in these values here for the 3 samples. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to do some box plots. So the overall minimum is the smallest minimum. We want to make sure that we start at the very lowest. So when I look at these figures here, I think 1 should be okay. So 1 kilo. And the overall maximum, when I look at these highest maximum points here or through here, I think that one's quite heavy, 3.7 and 3.74. So I'm just going to go to 4 kilos. So I'm going to plot between 0 and 4 kilos. Distance between tick marks, I'm just going to put a half, 0.5. We'll see how that looks. The axis title is the weight of trout, because that's the thing we're measuring. Display numbers of box plot. And we're just going to have a little drawer. Oh, that looks ugly. Let's redo that. See if it makes any difference. Oh yeah, that's better. Look at that. I just made that wider. Okay. And I might pay me to change the width. I'll make it really wide. See if it's going to not make too much of a difference. We can copy that plot there. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at a median fish that is in a slightly different place along this number line. Notice that they're the values of the medians, and they're all roughly about 1.7 kgs, 1.78. Remember, yours were around 2. So when we looked at yours, I think we had 2.8. I think that was the average. We'll have to go back and look at those other samples. But you can see what these ones here are, and they're just slightly different from each other. So we'll copy to clipboard. Let's see if we can pop it in over here somewhere. Paste. It's pasting the wrong thing. Let's go back and recopy them. Copy to clipboard. It doesn't want to do it. That's alright. The other way to grab things around the screen is to use a snippet tool, snipping tool. So we're going to do a new snip. And you notice the screen's gone light, so I'm just going to drag and copy around there. There it is there, so that's my little picture. And I can just go File, Save As, put it somewhere where I'll find it. This one here, that's in my pictures library. It's called Capture. I'll just call it Box Plots Trout, so it's a little bit obvious. Save. And when I go to Windows now, I can insert my picture, find the file, there it is, all good. Nice. And if I copy that, see if we can get it back in here with our data. Might not work. There she is. Okay. So what is it about these 3 different samples? We couldn't get all 5 on, but we got 3 on. We've got the middle 50%, remember, is this group here. Okay, so that's the middle half. They're the ones that matter to us because sometimes these little extreme ones are kind of little, and it's only 25% roughly, and there's 25% that are kind of high. But the middle group between the lower quartile and the upper quartile matters to us. So the most of the fish, or half the fish, or the middle half, lie between about 1.3 kilos and 2 kilos. Here between 1.38 and 1.8, between 1.5 and 2, all slightly different but also kind of the same. And We also notice that what we call the tails, because this is called a box and whisker, so this whisker or the end of the tails are kind of all over the place. But the thing to remember is what it marks, or what these mark, is the very heaviest fish. The last heavy fish is the end of that tail. So that's why we've got these long tails. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this here gives us a picture of the shape or the distribution of our sample. All right, how spread out it is, and where they're all sort of, where the main middle half is, and where the tops and bottoms of that are. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And I'll just say good night for now.